Ladies and gentlemen, this is Internet Personality Vangelus, and I'm going to transform this thing, because it's got a very, I think, esoteric transformation, and it might help to just see how it works before you try doing it yourself. So first I'm going to remove these, because they don't stay there. Anyway, there's all kinds of ways you can approach this. I've been trying to figure out the optimal order of operations, but for now I usually just start by folding in fists, because that gets that out of the way. You can then cover up the head by taking this backpack piece and lifting it up, down over the head. This is the same for both of the cone heads or the normal guys. And then you can tab it in there now if you want, or just make sure it's tabbed in there later. His legs are another thing you can sort of start transforming. The feet fold up. And then this is where things start to get kind of cool. It's easier to do this one at a time. You rotate this around like that, and then fold this down. Now, this panel over here, unpeg it and flip it around like this, and then orient it like thus. It's on like a multi-jointed little thing here. There's a lot more motion here than you might think, and it's pretty durable. I don't know if you saw the review already. If you did, you know that I'd durability tested these guys something fierce. And then you can fold this over now. The order of operations on this are not necessarily important in terms of little details like that. It's more so about the main torso area where you have to do things in a certain order. I just like doing this stuff now because then I don't have to think about it. And you can fold this thing up like thusly. I'm going to do that again over here because it's a good time. So the heel thing is down, this thing folds around, and then this little flap here folds up, and that is what this ends up being flush with. So you just match it up like thus. And then you'll also notice here that there's a little hole here and a peg there. Those things match up. Now this thing I might end up undoing during the transformation to get this out of the way or something. I always end up doing different orders on these things, and I can't quite remember what it is that I do. Also, these things, the reason why I'm using Smash Ore here is he's the only guy with an extra step, which is that eventually you take this thing and put it over there, and take this thing and put it over there, because they are mounted in a very specific way. The curvature of this and the placement of that tab is unique on each of these, so they either go on this way, like this, or that way, like that. In fact, I'll do it now, because I'm talking about it. This is pretty much just because this is what good old Ramjet had on his G1 toy as his unique identifying feature, these extra fins. And they follow the curvature of the Tetra Jet, but if you just leave them on like this, then they end up pointing this away forward when he's in robot mode, and I just don't like the aesthetics, and they are switchable, so I just tend to do that. Anyway, that's a bunch of time on a detail that is unimportant to the rest of this thing. Next, let's do the wings. Amazing. Astounding. Over here, you'll notice that the wing pack is tabbed in down here. You untab it, and this thing's on a joint, but you never actually fold this. You kind of just leave it alone, and I'll show you why later on. And then fold this thing. Whoops. I pulled too hard. I mentioned in the review this thing is on a disengageable clip, and sometimes if you pull a bit too hard or in the wrong direction, you'll disengage it, but it plugs right back in, so whatever. Anyway, I fold it down and out of the way. Now, close this up, and the next thing to do is fold the wings. This is one of the tricky parts of this guy, because it's not entirely clear how this is going to work right away, but basically the wing is on a hinge here, and then this thing's connected to a ball joint, which is also on a hinge that can circle around. Sorry, you couldn't see that. There's a ball joint here attached to a hinge that can circle around this thing that I was swinging around. Again, it's a bit deceptive, because this is more so just for having a freedom of motion during the transformation. I just fold it around like this. It'll eventually mount in like here, because you can see the pegs that go with those holes. But for the purposes of transformation, at first, you just want to have it kind of back like this. So I'll do that again over here with a bit less chatter, although I am a chatterbox. Fold that around and back. And now, for turning back into Tetra Jet mode, I have them oriented like this. So there's the guns pointed forward, there's the top of the thing. Hopefully you're getting enough of an angle to see how that works. The next bit of transformation is getting this thing out of the way. So you unclip the chest piece out of there, and then you fold these things back. And finally, you take the arms and you rotate them at the bicep 180 degrees, and then kind of leave them alone for now. If you want, you can bend the elbows, but I find that sometimes gets in the way. I sort of just... Eventually, the elbows will bend like thus. But I tend to do that just kind of during the transformation, and I kind of wait until this thing's out of the way. Finally, there's a bend at the middle of the torso, kind of like that. Now, this is where it's easy to get a little bit messed up as to what's happening. So you see the robot, right? If I put this here, right? There's the robot kind of in this weird sitting position. Flip it like that, and that's what the Tetra Jet's going to look like. Bear that in mind. Now that I flipped it like that, I'm going to bend the elbows so that they're underneath the edge of that thing. So you want the elbows kind of pointing downwards, as this is what the Tetra Jet's going to look like. These two things here are on double joints. There's no real set way to place them other than out of the way. So for now, I kind of just fold them down like this. The slots that you see here need to be free for tabs to go in. That's really about it. If there's one problem with this transformation, it's that these things don't feel like they have a solid place to go. That's really my only problem with the transformation, though. I kind of like this process. Now you take the legs, and you do this. This does have a solid place to go, but you can't really tell what it is yet. There is enough play in here to adjust as you go, and that's a good thing. Now comes the big moment of truth. You fold this thing up, and boom. That's why this little thing is on a joint that you don't really use, because it needs to remain in this orientation in order to have this all properly fit together. I think it's on the joint so you can adjust the wing pack in robot mode, but that's all I can see. Next up, I actually sometimes will take the side bits here and flip them up, and then take these bits here and point them a little bit downwards, because it makes things easier. Now, underneath here, you're going to start to see the locking mechanisms. There's some pegs here, and there is a slot here which fits that tab there. So an easy way to start orienting stuff is to, now you can bend the leg a little bit on the double knee joint and get those two pegs to line up with holes on here. There's only one circular hole, the other one's kind of a, this one over here is an elongated dash-shaped hole, which I believe you can see over here. So the one to mount first is this one, closest to the center of the chassis or the body or whatever. But now you've got those pegs mounted in. Those pegs are not going to stay in. These are more so guide pins. I guess that would be the best way to put it. But I leave things like this for now, just those pegs. Don't worry about these flippy bits quite yet. Next is one of the parts that could come off looking a little bit scary. You take the wings here and match up all these pegs to all those holes. This is actually pretty easy once you get used to how everything works, because you'll see a lot of wiggling, and that's to move the inner joint on the stick on there. It's easier than it sounds. You just kind of get used to how it works. And then start pegging these in. And I do the same on the other side, but I do not peg this to that quite yet. Again, this is a case of kind of like an exponential up curve of guide pins. So once again, I'm pegging all these in. And you'll notice also, like, you don't have to be too careful with this. You can kind of flex this long piece back here just a little bit to unpeel it or repeel it. Now that's all together, I'm taking this bit here and matching up those slots and that slot to some tabs in here. It is kind of easy if you just do one side first, and you can get your finger under here because these chest bits that don't really have anywhere to go, as long as you just keep them out of the way, they'll kind of rest on your finger a little bit, but it helps you guide this in. These upper slots and tabs are not super tight. Again, they're more like guide slots. The real tight one is going to be this one down here. That's the one that you make sure you really want to get lined up, and you have to have that thing aligned as well for this all to work properly. And then boom, that's in there. I'll do the same on that side. Now everything's kind of semi-holding itself together, and you can just start squeezing and pushing and massaging this all into one tight Tetra shape. Now that's done, I take this piece, and there's a little bit of flex again in the plastic, so you can kind of bring it up and around there. Do the same on this side. And then over here, that tab over here and that slot there are going to match up. That hole and that peg are going to match up. And blam. If there was one problem, it's that final connection has the same lack of real solid oomph that this back stuff here does. And as you can see, like, you don't have to worry too much about the legs being fully pegged in. This is all guide pin stuff back along here. But if this had a really solid clip in, that would have been quite satisfying. But by not having that, it also means that it's actually a bit easier to get all this lined up. The main solidity comes from these pins and those tabs, and it forms a really good jet mode. Finally, and maybe a little disappointingly, you just fold the arm sideways like that of the bicep. The one thing you want to make sure you're doing during this whole transformation, though, is keeping these shoulders the way they are in robot mode, because if you don't, if you try to pull the arm down and out of the way, they're going to start rubbing up against the inside up here, and it's going to mess up all your tolerances. So, once that's done, you can flip out some landing gear if you want. It's, I guess, a fun time for everyone. This front landing gear can be a bit of a bother to get out. If you don't have a good nail or good leverage, you can just get anything, even a toothpick in there, and kind of just fulcrum it out, and then just stop pushing it in as much as I usually do, because I'm a little bit excitable. Come with me. This is literally the hardest part of this, is getting the front landing gear out. The other parts of that stuff that you just saw can be tricky as well, but once you realize how everything's moving, and you figure out the order of when you flip the wings over, it's all so much easier. I'm gonna go get a toothpick. Hang on. I just kicked the camera like a champion! Hey! Come on out. Why don't you want to play with us? There we go. So I've got your landing gear out. You can take the guns. You can stick them on to these little ports over here. And hey, guess what? You've transformed yourself a Tetra Jet. I like that transformation. Once you figure out how it works, it is so satisfying because all those pins actually go in. Like the main pins, they all actually go the F in. And then you're left with this really solid Tetra Jet mode. I like it a lot. I've already done a stress test. I'm going to do another one. Check it out. Yeah, it didn't fall apart. It didn't collapse in on itself. I can bang on that and it's not coming apart. I could do this all day. Just, woo! Yeah! You don't know how to fly a jet. That's right. Anyway, hope that helped. These guys are packaged in robot mode as far as I know, so that should have been the most educational. But if you're at this point and a little bit lost, guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna do this all in the other direction. After an invisible jump cut so I could grab a drink of Coke. Anyway, I'm gonna transform this guy back into a robot. Now that you know how it works, I feel I have to narrate less stuff. And I threw him around a bunch so those pins came undone. Here, let me properly reset it so you can properly see. Guess what you're gonna do first? As you're transforming this guy, these legs tend to just sort of unseat themselves from the guide pins. If they are stuck in there, it's as simple as pulling up. Now they're a bit looser. But let's get it all solid and stuff, and then let's get this on. So what I like to do to transform this guy is start off by undoing the central core tabs. So I kind of just put my fingers in here, pull out, brace against the middle. Not too much force, but just enough to pop stuff loose. You don't have to be super careful here, but if you start yanking, I don't know, maybe it can get dangerous. I'm going to try yanking, actually. Here, let's stress test while we're transforming, because that seems to be one of the big things people want to know about this, is can this thing survive being transformed, because Valkyrie was built kind of crap, and guess what, it can. There, I yanked. You came up with it. Anyway, pull that thing out. Next, you might need a nail for this, or maybe just dig your finger flesh in. But I tend to put my hands up here and dig in here, and then peel this back, and boom. It's kind of like you're unpeeling the wings out. I've fulcrumed this pull on this peg many times, and I have yet to see the peg so much as start to stress. Granted, this is white plastic, but on the non-white ones, I haven't seen stress marks. So this stuff feels like it's built to last. And from here, I think is one of the trickiest parts. Like going from robot to jet, going from jet to robot, you kind of have to figure out where to put the wings when you're messing with everything else. So the main thing to do is to get that inner white arm folded up and out of the way. So I just fold it up and out of the way like that. And there we go, it's out of the way. Folding these things up will undo those clasps. You can fold this part up right now if you want. It's no real need to either way. And I'm going to probably fold these down afterwards for a reason you'll see sooner or later. Seems to be tabbed on the leg still. There we go. So, once that's all done, you take this and fold her back. There you go. The legs, now you can get out of the way by folding them forward. And then straightening them. And then you can transform them now if you want. You take this flap here, get it out of the way, and then take this piece here on the multiple jointed arm, get it all the way around, and then you tab it in right here on the side of the foot. And if you have this heel piece folded back, it's actually in the way of folding this thing around. So that's why I keep it down here until it's folded around. And then I get this in place to go in, fold the heel up, and you take this tab, and, well, actually this peggy tab, and then you push it into that slot there and fold the foot down. Hey, that's a leg transformation. Let's do the other one, because, oh, by the way, spoiler alert. Let's do the other one. So I've got all that set up, got my little flap out of the way, taking this thing, multi-arm flip, turn the thigh now, let's switch it up. Take this tab, put it in there, fold the heel back, foot down, bam, legs! And then you see how these things are pointing forward? So if you take the one on his right leg and untab it, take the one on his left leg, untab it, but stick it over on the right leg the other way around, and then vice versa. There, now they look right. Hooray. Where am I? Right, I take this mid-torso flippy joint thing and, bump that up. I gotta come up here. Take the arms, straighten them, fold them around thusly so they're facing the right way. The right way has the fish showing on the back. Where are we? Here we go. Let's take this thing. This is another part which is kind of odd, very esoteric. It's my favorite word of the week. And it is a part that I kind of like. So you take the sides of the chest, you fold them up here, and you see how there's tabs along there that we just used for transformation? You're going to use some of those to tab this chest thing in. There's a tab here, for instance. You put it up until it locks. You'll feel the tabs go in. There's also a tab for this slot up here. So fold it up like bump, and then boom. And then with all that properly locked in place, those two pegs on the inside of those things are going to match up with the two peg holes right here. And what that means is we're going to have a really nice and solid torso connection that actually plugs and kind of clips a little bit right into place. And this thing is kind of just wiggling around. I'll put it here for looks, I guess. Next we take the wing pack. Oh, before we do that, I actually miss this sometimes, and it doesn't really impact things, but the classic G1 Seeker cone head shoulder things, flip them up like that. You take the wings here, and now it's easy to be tempted to want to start twisting everything. Don't. Although you won't want to pull these out so you have enough room to work. If you take a wing, you just are mostly folding the white thing. This little black joint is for adjustments, not full folds. You can fold the wing all the way around it, but that will just mess you up. So just fold the white part and turn the wing like this. And eventually, the way you want it oriented is with this foldy bit on the top there, because then it goes like that. This is how the wings lock in. They don't actually clip it anywhere. I think they probably could have, and it would have helped a lot. But you're pretty much getting the wing to, you bend this back like that and then seat it like that. Don't try to fold this thing all the way back around. I tried it a few times and it wasn't working. I looked. This is actually an angular cut hinge. It doesn't go past this. That's how far it's supposed to go. If you push it any farther, it might start bending, but that's probably because you're pushing hard enough to bend plastic, and it's not as intended. So be aware of that. While you're trying to turn this, by the way, if you do end up with, your various pressures going the wrong way, it might pop loose. The part that'll pop loose is actually this black piece here, because it's held in with, it's a friction joint. So that means that it's not going to break, it'll just pop out, and you'll have to clip it back in, which is pretty simple. But you get the wings all set up like thus, and then you take this thing, fold it up like that, and then you take it, there's a slot here in his butt that goes with this tab thingy, and you just line it up, and now this thing's all solidly nice in place. If this is loose at all, that's a friction tab. You can fix that with floor polish in like 2 seconds. Just put a layer on there and thicken it. His fists, I'm going to blow your minds here. Everything on this guy is so esoteric. His fists fold out of the bottom, not out of the sides like most toys. This does actually preserve the forward aesthetics by having the hollow part being on the bottom. And I'm sure there are other toys that do that. I just can't think of any right now. For some reason, a lot of these fists tend to come out of the sides of the forearms. Finally, you take this thing, and this could have just been folding that back and you're done. But there's actually a tab here. You can kind of see it here on the bottom of the the head platform. There is a tab there, and it goes into a slot here. My light fell down. There we go. It goes into a slot here. That tab there. And if you have to kind of align your pressures properly, but if you line it up right, it's actually going to click a little bit. Like that. If it doesn't click like that, but it goes in, just I don't know, live with it. It's, because it doesn't clip in, like, it's not a clip to come out, it's just a clip going in, so it's just a little bit of a tooth-style clip, and I quite like that. And then you just kind of fold this thing down here. Unfortunately, that's all that does. As I said in the review, if there had been a clip from here to here, this would have been perfect. As it is, it's not like this flops around at all. Like, if you shake this guy, it's staying there. But, anyway, that's how you transform one of these. Oh, sorry, I forgot. In case you're lost. You're like, where do the guns come from? You stick them in. Happy St. Patrick's Day? I don't know. That's when I'm recording this. Here we go. Stick this one in as well. Boom! There's your smash-or! Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. Hopefully that helped you transform your Tetra Squadron if you're having trouble, or it informed you better of how they transform if you don't have one, and you're just curious. So, if you haven't watched the review, probably should watch the review. But if this is all you're going to predicate your decision on, then at least you know how they transform. Until next time, have a tetrahedronic day.